4 games into the championship season, the transfer window is firmly shut. You might call it cheating, but today I'm going to be giving you my final 25-26 championship table predictions. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Harvey Bell, and as we run through these predictions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments how you think the season is going to go, where you think your team is going to finish, and of course your opinions are going to differ from mine, so please do make sure that we're keeping it respectful. And if you do go on to enjoy the video, if you subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Shall we get started then? And in 24th, I'm going to go for Sheffield Wednesday. Now, I don't really like doing this at all because if they do get relegated, it's not really going to be on football merit. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on all the stuff that's going on with Chancery, but I think that everybody from the outside can see that the club is not being run in a way that reflects the history of the fan base, the history of the club, and it's really, really sad to see. You know, a couple of years ago, Ipswich were in League One with Sheffield Wednesday, and they were two clubs that were seemingly too big to be in the division. And when we both came up together, I hoped that maybe that was a better time for both clubs, and it's certainly been a better time for Ipswich, but sadly not for Sheffield Wednesday. And unfortunately, they've got a 25-man squad that is made up predominantly of youngsters. So I really don't like to see the way that they're being treated at the minute. But unfortunately, I do think it is going to mean that they finish bottom of the championship table. Then we're going to head to 23rd, and I'm going for Charlton Athletic. Now, there's probably a bit of natural bias here just because they were the playoff winners, and I always think it's harder for the playoff winners to stay up, especially if they don't recruit particularly well, which I don't think Charlton necessarily have, because ultimately they weren't consistent enough over the sort of whole season like the teams that finished first and second do, and it is a bit of a potluck to get up through the playoffs. And I'm not diminishing the fact that they've got up because they've done tremendously well to get up, and they do have some really, really strong players, Charlie Kelman, Harvey Nibbs, but I just see a massive lack of experience outside players like Amari Bell. The big factor here, of course, is Nathan Jones massively overachieved with Luton when he was in charge of them in the Championship, got them into the playoffs. So if that factor comes into play, then they could massively prove me wrong. But for now, I can't see anything other than a straight relegation back for Charlton Athletic. The third and final team that I think are going to be relegated this year is Oxford United. Now, they did tremendously well last year to stay up on what was a shoestring budget. They've kept Cameron Brannigan for yet another season, which is a terrific piece of business because, every window he's got to be linked with moves away from the club. He's such a good, talented player. But again, I look at their squad, I see a lack of championship quality. And unfortunately, I just think other teams around them this year have strengthened and they haven't. So I feel like it's going to be them that's going down. In 21st, I'm going to go for QPR. Now, this one is a little bit controversial because I think QPR were certainly on the up under Martí Cifuentes. Obviously, when he came in last year, they had a real purple patch over November, December and January that if they didn't have, they would have probably been in serious contention to go down last season. But that massive purple patch kept them sort of from a serious relegation dogfight. But they have now lost Martí Cifuentes to Leicester, which is really, really disappointing for them. I feel like QPR have been flirting with relegation for a couple of years, but I see too much sort of quality in their team to actually go down, and I see them just being a little bit better than Charlton and Oxford United. But I don't think it's going to be an easy to watch season for QPR fans, if I'm being honest. 20th, I'm going for Derby County, and to be honest with you, I watched them against Ipswich and I just can't see a way where they get relegated. They have so many players that are street smart in this division and have so much championship experience. You've got the likes of Colton Morris in there, who is as much of a championship striker as you could really imagine. He holds up the ball well. He's a bit nasty to the defenders. He's never going to be a striker that massively excites anyone, but he does what he needs to do. Lewis Travis in there as well, terrific signing from Blackburn. They paid £6 million for him, so you'd hope that he comes up trumps for them. Danny Bath at centre-back as well. I'm just saying that there's a lot of players that have been in this division for a long time and know how to execute game plans. Derby are not going to be exciting to watch this season. They're going to be a team that comes to your ground. They're going to waste time. They're going to go down every chance that they can, pretend to be injured, all sorts. But if that's what's going to keep them in the division, then fair play to them. It might not be the prettiest style of football, but they have the players to execute it well. And therefore, I think whilst being towards the bottom of the table, I can't see them going down. In 19th place, I'm going for Hull City. And before I go into why I think they're going to be sort of towards the bottom of the table, I think you first have to commend them for the way that they dealt with the transfer embargo, because as much as they couldn't sign players for a fee, they were able to make great use of the loan market, great use of the free transfer market, bringing in players like Ollie McBurney, Brandon William. I think that was really, really good business. Although Stephen Alzate going in the midfield is a really, really big loss for them. It wasn't the greatest season for them last season by any accounts, and to be honest, I don't think that they've strengthened enough to mount a serious push up the table. So that is why I've got them in 19th. 18th, I've gone for Blackburn, and for very similar reasons to Hull. I just don't think that they've necessarily really improved upon last season. Every season, they seem to mount a serious sort of championship playoff push towards the end of the campaign. But I think they leave themselves too much to do. They always sort of dwindle in the early season, maybe languish sort of bottom mid-half and then push on. But I don't think they can keep affording to do that, and they need to find a way to become a little bit more consistent. 17th, and I've gone for Watford. Now, I like some of the business that Watford have done this summer, but again, it's another new manager, isn't it? Paolo Pazzolano. And I just find it really, really hard to get behind Watford, because every time they start a new project, they bring in a new manager. It's like having a blank canvas, hiring a new artist, and never giving them the chance to get a paintbrush in their hand. It just never seems to work. And I feel like until they give somebody a proper chance to build something at Vicarage Road and in Hertfordshire, really get into the community and really mount something of a push to get themselves back into the Premier League, it's going to be really, really hard for them to crack on. 16th, and we're slowly getting up the table now with Preston North End. Now, Preston, maybe this is a bit harsh because I'm basing them mainly off the one game that I saw them play, which was against Ipswich. They beat us, fair play to them. Not an exciting team. They are going to waste time, similar to what I said about Derby. The gamesmanship, they've got it in abundance, but these are going to be a really, really hard team to play against at Deepdale. They've got enough quality, to be honest with you, and they've only lost at Deepdale 4 times in the last year, which is a terrific stat. And whilst I don't think that they're going to have enough to be in contention for sort of the playoffs or even top half championship, I think that their home form is going to be more than enough to keep them away from any sort of relegation fight. In 15th, I've gone for Portsmouth, and I've got to say it before we crack on to anything else that they've done. They've got Connor Chaplin from us on loan. I'm massively disappointed. I love Connor Chaplin. I think everybody knows that on this channel. So what a terrific signing that is for him. I think they've been smart in the transfer window. They've thrown sentiment out of the window. They've said goodbye to players like Anthony Scully and Paddy Lane, who were key in getting them back up, but sadly didn't necessarily cut it in the Championship. Those guys have gone back to League One. They did really well last year to establish themselves and avoid a relegation fight last year. And I think they'll look for another sort of steady season before probably pushing on to hopefully be part of the chasing pack for the playoffs next season. Swansea City in 14th then, and there seems to be a really good buzz around Swansea at the minute. Obviously with the consortium led by Luka Modric, there's a lot of excitement there, as there is usually with any sort of overseas investment. And to be honest, their caretaker manager, Alan Sheehan, who's now been promoted to their permanent manager, has done such a good job. They look so much more energetic. They press so much better. You know, last season, they recorded 5 wins on the bounce, which is something they hadn't done since 2007. And they're looking to carry that form into this season. They've already beaten Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday this season. So big win over the Steel City there. And the only team that they've lost to from memory is Middlesbrough. And I expect Middlesbrough to be right up there, as you'll see later in the video. So I think Swansea are onto something really good. But I do just think it's a transition period for Swansea at the minute. I think they're at the start of their project and aren't quite ready to kick on yet. But I've no doubt when I come to doing these predictions in a year's time, I think I'll be having Swansea a lot higher. 13th then, and I'd have liked to have put them a lot further down the table just because they're our rivals, but it is Norwich City. It has to be said, Liam Manning is a very, very steady manager at this level. He's going to keep them far away from trouble, you'd imagine. They've kept hold of Josh Sargent, which is a terrific piece of business. He's probably one of the best strikers in the division. And as much as he was linked with going, it does look like he's going to be staying at Carrow Road. There's rumours of him signing a new contract soon. So that's really positive for the Canaries. There is a lot of discontent between the fans and the sporting director, Ben Napper, at the minute. So I don't know how much that will translate into the on-field performance, but we'll wait and see there. But at the end of the day, as much as I hate to admit it, even without Boyer Sains, Norwich are a steady Championship club. Even if they have sold Marcelino Nunes to Ipswich Town, I wasn't going to forget about that. 12th, and I am going with Wrexham. Of course, lots and lots of noise around Wrexham this season after their journey into the Championship, the Disney Plus documentaries, the money they have. You know, what a time to be a Wrexham fan. And to be honest, when I first started writing down my predictions for the Championship, I had them a lot further down the table. And then I done some more research. I looked into the players they've signed, their early season form. They're going to score a lot of goals. Kiefer Moore, terrific striker at this level. Nathan Broadhead, of course, from Ipswich, is a terrific creator, scores good goals too. Ryan Hardy from Plymouth, a really, really good signing. They are going to get goals. They've signed a lot of Championship quality, a lot of Championship experience. It's just now for Phil Parkinson to try and get them all to gel together, because there's a lot of new additions into that squad. So we'll wait and see how they do. But I'm playing it a little bit safe here by leaving Wrexham in mid-table. 11th, and I am going to go for Stoke City. Now, they've had a really, really good start to the season. They're right up there. And to be honest, they need to be, because since they got relegated from the Premier League, which seems like an absolute lifetime ago now, they haven't ever really seriously mounted a playoff push, or even they've never really seriously mounted a promotion push to get back into the promised land. And to be honest with you, I just can't see them sustaining it, because there's so much quality at the top end of the Championship this season. You know, maybe I'm being really disrespectful there to Stoke City fans, but I just can't see them sustaining it amongst some of the other clubs that are up there. I don't think they've invested just quite well enough, which is a shame, because it'd be good to see Stoke City get back up there. But for now, I've got them in 11th. Bristol City are in 10th then for me. And I always feel like Bristol City are the football equivalent of always the bridesmaid and never the bride. They're always in the chasing pack for the playoffs, sometimes even get themselves into the playoffs like last season. But they never quite make the step into the Premier League. And it would be nice to see them do it at some point, to be honest. But I don't think it's going to be this season. Of course, Liam Manning leaving for Norwich is a big loss. He was building something there, that young squad. Jason Knight, Scott Twine, Luke McNally. And now Gerard Struber has got to go and pick up on that. I think Bristol City fans would be really, really annoyed, because I think at this stage, having been consistently top half of the table, they would really like to see themselves push on. But unfortunately, I think just the managerial setback is going to be really difficult for them to overcome this season. And I think they'll be looking to maybe push on again next season if Gerard Struber can kick on. Now we're getting into the real top end of the table. And, you know, this one might annoy Sheffield United fans, but I've got them in 9th. Right now, they sit bottom of the table. They're pointless in 4 games. Now, realistically, I cannot see them staying there. Their squad has far too much quality in it for them to end up finishing bottom of the table. You know, they've kept Gus Hamer in this transfer window, which is extraordinary. There was Premier League interest for him. And after missing out on the Premier League last season in the nature that they did, I'm surprised that Gus Hamer didn't go. But he's still there. He's loyal to the club. And that is going to make a huge, huge difference. The problem is they have started badly. There's a massive hangover from conceding at Wembley in the last minute last season to obviously then miss out on the Premier League. And that is difficult to overcome, not just for the players, but for the backroom staff, for the fans, for everyone associated with the club. And that means that there's natural frustration early season when things don't necessarily go their way. Ruben Sells is already under enormous pressure. There's talk that if Sheffield United don't get a result at Portman Road against us in their next game, then potentially he could already be gone. We'll wait and see what happens there. I do think Sheffield United will get sorted, and if they get sorted over the next couple of games, then I can see them finishing a lot higher. But it is just a matter of when they get themselves sorted, and for now I've got them in 9th because I expect them to climb the table, but I think it's going to be a little while until they get themselves back on track. 8th, I've got Millwall. And this is quite the turnaround, to be honest with you, because as an Ipswich fan, I have to tell you this and be brutally honest. When I came to the Den 2 seasons ago, the season where we got promoted to the Premier League, I have to say, in our 4-0 victory, Millwall were probably one of the worst Championship sides I had ever seen. I believe it was Neil Harris's first game back in charge, and they looked dejected, they looked off the pace, they didn't really look interested. Fast forward 2 years and wow, Alex O'Neill has transformed the side. Over 380 games in the Championship. He knows what he's doing quite clearly, and they've had a really good second half of the season last year. They've started this season fairly decently. Massimo Luongo and Will Smallbone, two great signings in the midfield, and of course keeping hold of the man up top, Milo Ivanovic, one of the best strikers in the division, if not the best striker. And it's really hard to not put Millwall in the top six, but as you'll come to see over the next few minutes, there's other teams I just think are a little bit ahead of them at the minute, but it's an exciting time to be a Millwall fan, I think. Again, a really hard one to miss out on the playoffs is West Brom. I've got them in 7th. Ryan Mason, another young manager in this division, desperate to impress, plays high pressing football, is exciting to watch. But I just think losing players like Tom Fellows to your promotion rivals is a really, really, really risky game. And I think ultimately that's going to be what cost them. That said, they've still got great players in this division. Chris Metham, Jed Wallace, those sort of players that have been here, have done it for a long time. Maybe they prove to be the difference. But Fellows is going to be a big loss for them. It was pretty much between them and Southampton for the final playoff spot. And just because of that Tom Fellows deal, I think I'm going to give that 6th spot to Southampton. Now, Southampton, like ourselves and Leicester, will first have to overcome a massive hangover from last season. Relegation is never easy, especially the nature that it happened. Southampton were very, very close at times to recording a record low points in the Premier League. They're used to losing. They're used to having to, come from behind, and that can be really hard to deal with. But it seems like they're doing well with it. Will Still, of course, a manager that has come over from Europe and has a lot to prove. He's a young manager. He's got a young team, and it's really interesting to see how he gets on. I mean, I think he's going to do well. I think when you look at Southampton's squad, they've got undeniable talent in that squad, and that's why I think that they will get themselves into the top 6. They've signed really good players. They've lost good players. They sold good players in Tyler Diblin to Everton. They lost Fernandez to West Ham, but they got big money and they've reinvested it well. Finn Azaz, Tom Fellows, like we just spoke about for West Brom. These are decent signings, and exactly the sort of players you want to see coming in after you've sold your best players. So I think Southampton will be there or thereabouts. I've got them in the playoffs. Don't think they're quite strong enough for automatics, but they're going to be mounting a serious push for an instant return to the Premier League. 5th place, and I've gone for Birmingham City. Now, I think with all the noise around them, they've coped with the pressure tremendously. 7 points on the board already. Chris Davies and all the Birmingham fans will be delighted with that. I'd imagine that's a really strong, solid start to the Championship season. And the reason that I've got them in the playoffs is because momentum can be a fantastic thing. The points tally they recorded in League One last season, record breaking. It was ridiculous, and you don't just forget how to win games, to be honest. And I can see them carrying that form right into the Championship. I can see them, making light work of the teams towards the bottom half of the table. And you're probably asking me, well, if Birmingham have momentum, why don't Wrexham? Well, Wrexham do have a lot of momentum, and I think their momentum will carry them to mid-table. But when you look at Birmingham's squad, I just think they're a little bit more rounded. They're a little bit further ahead, and I can really see them getting themselves in contention for promotion. Of course, back-to-back automatic promotion is a massive, massive ask. I wouldn't rule it out, but for now, I've got them in the playoffs. 4th place, Leicester City. And what's life going to be like without Jamie Vardy? Well, so far, it hasn't been too bad. A couple of wins on the board already. Marty Cifuentes in charge, somebody that's had a really, really exciting stint at Championship level. He could get Leicester fans the exciting football that they've been craving for a while. But Leicester have lost Wilfred Ndidi, James Justin as well. 2 players that have been really big for them over the last couple of seasons, so that might be really difficult for them. That's why I haven't necessarily got them in the top 2, but it has to be said that of these final 4 that I'm going to talk about, I do think that they could be in any order. It's a really, really difficult sort of promotion candidate to pick this year, but Leicester are looking strong, they're looking good. Keeping Fatawu is absolutely massive for them. It seems like they've avoided a points deduction, which will go a long way in keeping the Foxes in the hunt for promotion back to the Premier League. In third place, I've gone for Middlesbrough. What a start to the season. They've had 4 wins from 4. They are the current league leaders. Keeping Hayden Hackney is a fantastic piece of business. Premier League interest from him. I don't think there was necessarily ever a massive bid for him from the Premier League. Obviously, sadly turned down Ipswich. I'd have loved to have had him at Portman Road. Michael Carrick done a fantastic job at Middlesbrough. He got them on track, but I think he took them probably as far as he could. And now it's over to Rob Edwards to try and see if he can get them over the line in terms of promotion back to the top division. And it's something that he's ultimately done before with Luton. So I think they've got a really good chance and they're in really capable hands. I just don't think that they're going to have enough to overcome who I'm going to predict to be in the top 2. And in second place, call me biased, but I'm going with Ipswich Town. And you're probably thinking I'm crazy because right now, we've not won a game. And there is probably a little bit of unintentional bias, I'm not going to lie to you. But the players that we've signed this window, some of the players that we signed in the Premier League last season that have stayed for us but maybe didn't perform, have the potential to create a really, really frightening championship squad. Jack Clark and Sammy Schmodix, the season before last, were amongst the very, very best players in the division. You add Chuba Akpom, who scored 28 goals for Middlesbrough in this division, and that attack looks to be frightening. Dara O'Shea, a promotion winner with Burnley from this division. Jacob Greaves and Jaden Philogene, star players for Hull. I might be looking at this with blue tinted glasses on, but it's really hard to ignore the fact that we do have an enormous amount of talent at this level. And if Kieran McKenna can get it clicking, if he can get us over the hangover of last season, the disappointment of this start to this season, and when we come back from the international break can turn us around nice and quickly, get some confidence back into the group, there's absolutely no reason why we don't get ourselves back into automatic promotion contention. And I can really see it happening. I really can. So obviously I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we see ourselves get back into the Premier League. And finishing first in the table, some might call this a bit of a rogue shout, but I've gone for Coventry City. So, I'm massively impressed with Coventry. It has to be said, Haji Wright is a fantastic player at Championship level, and I'm surprised he's not attracted a move from the Premier League, to be honest. I like Frank Lampard a lot, to be honest, as a manager. He needed Coventry to be good for him after his recent jobs where it hasn't maybe necessarily gone as well for him. I think he needed a club where he could bounce back with. Coventry have been on the brink of promotion for a couple of seasons now and narrowly missed out. But look at some of the players that they've got. Jack Rudoni in the middle as well. Keeping hold of him is big. Luke Wolfenden at the back, big signing from Ipswich, promotion winner. I think that they are in for a really, really good season. And like I say, that top 4 could finish in any order. But right now, I do have Coventry City winning the 2025-2026 EFL Championship. Like I say, would love to hear your predictions down in the comments down below. And as ever, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you make of my predictions. I'll see you in the next one. But for now, keep on keeping on.